Exposed. How a poor girl unexpectedly changed the life of a blind billionaire's son in 30 days. Zoe wiped the grease-stained counter with a rag, glancing out at the worn diner tables filled with townsfolk. The aroma of coffee and sweet rolls hung heavy in the air, a comforting backdrop to her everyday life. At 18, her world revolved around shifts at Rick's diner, where she served coffee and smiles in equal measure. The struggle of making ends meet alongside her mother, a veteran battling the shadows of her past, forged Zoe into a warrior with a drive that burned deep within her. Yet on this ordinary day, whispers of something extraordinary floated through the air like a summer breeze. "Have you heard about Jake Hollister?" a customer asked, eyes wide with excitement. "The blind son of that tech tycoon? He's been spotted in town." Zoe perked up. She had heard snippets about Jake, how he was cooped up in a mansion just outside town, bound by the weight of his family's expectations, never venturing into the world that surrounded them. Zoe couldn't shake the feeling of intrigue. What was it like to live in a gilded cage, to be both privileged and imprisoned? This boy, wrapped in riches but trapped in darkness, suddenly sparked her curiosity. Then the universe stepped in. On a particularly bustling Saturday, as she poured coffee for a table of locals, the bell above the door chimed, and in walked Jake Hollister, sightless, yet all senses alive. He wore an air of uncertainty, hands slightly outstretched, as if seeking a lifeline in the swirling chaos of the diner. Before she could think, her feet moved. "Can I help you?" Zoe breathed, a smile breaking through her nervousness. Jake paused, and for a moment, the air hung thick like a moment from a movie. Just a coffee, please," he replied, his voice calm but laced with vulnerability. As she poured the hot brew, Zoe felt the stirrings of connection. Their conversations blossomed from awkward beginnings into lively discussions about dreams and hopes. Jake spoke of technology and ambitions while Zoe shared her dreams of escaping the shackles of their small town. They discovered laughter, unearthed joys in small moments, and shared dreams larger than life, two souls finding refuge in the unlikeliest of friendships. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue their bond unraveled challenges, revealing the barriers they faced: economic divides, whispered prejudices, and the suffocating expectations Jake fought against. Yet with every laugh, every conversation, Zoe helped Jake explore the world beyond his mansion, the world of dirty sidewalks, bright sun, and rich laughter that came from being truly alive. But just as their hearts began to bridge the gap between their lives, Jake's family tightened the rope of expectation around him. "You shouldn't be around that girl," they insisted, their voices sharp with judgment. Their world of privilege threatened to claw away the connection he had come to cherish. Meanwhile, Zoe grappled with feelings of being out of place in Jake's polished life, battling her fears of inadequacy. The tension grew, twisting their bond into something fragile. Would Jake listen to the voice of his family? Would he reject the light Zoe brought into his life? As a storm brewed on the horizon of their connection, both Zoe and Jake stood at the precipice, each a single choice away from a future intertwined or a dream lost to societal expectations. As night fell upon the diner, shadows danced around them, holding questions that lingered in the air. Would love be enough to transcend this chasm between two worlds? Jake drifted back into the melodic sound of voices and clinking dishes, pulling himself from the whirlpool of thoughts about what his family expected of him. He had spent years feeling the confines of that mansion, listening to voices tell him who he should be. But now, as he stood in the faded diner, he was finding a light. Zoe's reassuring presence was like a warm blanket on a cold day. "Do you ever feel trapped?" Jake asked, his voice soft but steady, breaking the silent spell between them. Zoe tilted her head, her brow furrowing slightly. She paused. It wasn't just a question about being blind, it was about life, dreams, and fears. "All the time," she admitted finally, a surprising honesty spilling from her lips. "But I try to fight back. Every day." Zoe could see shadows of his world creeping in, threatening to snuff out what they had nurtured. She felt a bond stronger than the chains that held them apart. His fingers brushed the smooth ceramic cup, the warmth radiating through his palms. What if this whole time we've been afraid of the wrong things? Jake mused, leaning closer. He could hear the hope in her breath. It sent sparks racing through him. Just then, the door swung open, and the diner filled with the familiar rattling of footsteps. A knot tightened in Jake's stomach as he recognized the authoritative voice of his father's assistant, Clara, announcing her presence like a storm front overshadowing the sun. "Jake, there you are. Your father is worried sick." Zoe's smile faded like daylight retreating into twilight. She could sense the tension rising, not just from Jake but from the scrutiny his family would bring. I should go," Jake stammered, longing to stay, but knowing his reality was waiting, glaringly present. "Wait," Zoe said, stepping forward, her heart pounding. "You don't have to." "I have to," he insisted, his breath catching as he turned away, fighting against the yearning that clawed at him. Each step he took away from her felt like a small piece of him was being left behind, abandoned in the warmth of the diner. As Jake approached Clara, Zoe's heart sank deeper. She wanted to scream for him to stay. Instead, she picked up the rag and began wiping down the counter, the weight of despair creeping into her bones. "Are you okay, Zoe?" Rick, the diner's owner, asked gently. His kind eyes searched hers and she nodded, though the tears threatened to spill. It felt inadequate to explain that she had just lost a part of herself in letting Jake go. The whispers of her dreams felt miles away now, overshadowed by the reality of their worlds colliding. "What's going on with that boy?" a regular Mrs. Wilkes chattered. "He's nothing but trouble for those of us around here." Zoe brushed off the remarks, creating a bubble of resolve around her. Jake's voice had tethered parts of her that had been restless for far too long. She knew that confrontation loomed like a storm on the horizon. There would be a day when they would either face their fears together or crumble under the weight of expectations. And just then, as she stared into the swirling depths of her own thoughts, her choice became clear. The diner was closing soon, and she decided she would wait for him, no matter how long it took. Hours later, the bell jingled again. Zoe's heartbeat soared at the sight of Jake, even though Clara stood close, her presence suffocating, like a dark cloud. Eyes locked for the briefest moment, and in that stare, Zoe recognized something powerful. Jake was not just the blind billionaire's son. He was a person longing for freedom, just like her. Now the question loomed large. Would he step across that threshold with her? Or would fear lead him back to the life he'd grown up in? As their worlds collided once more, the atmosphere crackled with unspoken words and potential. Would love find a way to cross the chasm formed by their differences? Would Jake choose the unknown over security? The answers hung heavy in the air, waiting. Jake's heart raced as he stood just outside the diner, the cool air brushing against his skin. The voices of his family swirled in his mind, casting shadows over the possibility of staying. But the intensity of Zoe's gaze anchored him. It was both a comfort and a challenge. "I'm sorry," he whispered to Clara, hardly aware of her presence. "I just need a moment," Clara huffed, irritation spilling over. "You can't keep avoiding your responsibilities, Jake." "Your father, he doesn't understand," Jake interrupted, his voice rising. "None of you do." The weight of those words hung between them, heavy and charged. With a sudden decision, he pushed past Clara and stepped back into the diner. "What do you want, Jake?" Zoe asked, her voice tremulous. She stepped closer, as if the space between them crackled with possibility. "I want to show you something," he said, taking a breath, his decision cementing before her eyes. "I know I have a lot of obligations, but this what we have, it matters. I don't want to lose it." As he spoke, the air shifted. Zoe's heart pounded, each beat a reminder that hope still flickered in places unseen. "Then let us take a chance," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "What do you mean?" He looked at her, confused yet intrigued. "Let us go somewhere that's just ours," she suggested, urgency bubbling within her. "Somewhere we can breathe without the weight of expectations." An idea ignited in Jake's mind, and his eyes sparkled with excitement. "Okay, but it has to be somewhere different. Somewhere we can be ourselves." Zoe laughed lightly, the sound almost magical. "I know just the place." With a nod, Jake grabbed her hand gently, feeling the warmth of her skin seep into his heart. Together they stepped outside the diner, leaving Clara's protests fading behind them. The night was alive, vibrant stars dancing above them as they walked. Jake surrendered to the moment, the crisp air filling his lungs with a sense of freedom he hadn't anticipated. Zoe led him along the street, her determination radiating like a beacon. They reached an old park, one that had seen better days but still housed whispers of joy among its trees and worn benches. "This is my refuge," she shared, a hint of pride coloring her voice. "I spent countless hours here dreaming." Jake took in the surroundings, feeling the roughness of the bench beneath him and the soft rustle of leaves. "It feels magical," he whispered. "I never imagined I could find peace here." As they sat side by side, a comfortable silence enveloped them. The world outside faded. Jake turned to her, searching her face for understanding. "What if we don't fit into each other's lives? Maybe we can create our own space," Zoe responded, her voice firm. "We could be a little reckless just for tonight." Her words rolled over him like a gentle wave. He grinned, the idea of surrendering to reckless abandon invigorating him. "I like the sound of that." Suddenly, the tension from earlier melted away, and laughter bubbled up between them. For the first time, Jake felt an intoxicating freedom. But tragedy was just around the corner. They heard a distant shout, a group of familiar voices approaching, and Jake's heart clenched. "My family is here," he exclaimed, instinctively pulling back, panic flashing in his eyes. "Jake, wait," Zoe urged, but he was already on his feet, adrenaline surging. Would he run back to the life that suffocated him? Or could he find the strength to stand with Zoe against the world? As the voices grew closer, the reality of their worlds crashing together loomed large. Jake's choice was at hand, and the night held its breath, waiting for him to decide. Jake's heart hammered in his chest, each beat a reminder of everything he might lose. The voices from his family pierced through the soothing calm of the park, yanking him back to reality. He looked at Zoe, her eyes wide with concern, and felt a whirlwind of emotions. "Jake," a voice called out, sharp and demanding. It was his father, unmistakable even through the distance. "I have to go," he said, his voice shaky. Panic gripped him. "Don't," Zoe urged, her voice almost pleading. "They can't dictate everything you do. Remember why we came here." But just as she spoke, his father's approach grew louder, drowning out her words. Jake's hands trembled as he gripped the edge of the bench. He wanted to stay, to fight for this chance with Zoe. But years of obligation and expectation washed over him like a cold wave. "Stay," Zoe urged, grabbing his arm. Her touch sent a surge of warmth through him, but also reminded him of the pressure building in his chest. "Stay?" he echoed, the word tasting bitter on his tongue. "I can't. My family, they'll go crazy. You don't understand. But you're not your family." She shot back, emotion tightening her voice. "You don't have to live their life. You've got to decide who you want to be, Jake." Her words resonated deep within him, sparking a flicker of rebellion he hadn't felt in years. He turned to face her, his breath coming quicker. "What if they never accept me? What if I do this and everything crashes down? Then we'll rebuild," Zoe replied softly. "Together." Her resolve was infectious, pulling him closer to the edge of a choice he hadn't known he was capable of making. But just then his family burst into the park, their silhouettes sharp against the dim light. Clara led the charge, her face a mixture of anger and confusion. "Seriously, Jake? You just leave us waiting?" Jake felt the pressure mount, his chest tightening painfully. The warmth that Zoe brought him began to feel too distant, overshadowed by the anger radiating from the approaching figures. "Why are you here?" he spat, the words slipping out before he could stop himself. He felt a mix of shame and defiance. "Can't you see I'm figuring things out?" "Figuring things out?" Clara scoffed, hands on her hips. "You're supposed to be with us tonight. You're not some kid who can just run off." With a glance back at Zoe, he saw the hurt flicker across her face. It twisted something inside him, an ache he longed to soothe. He took a step toward her, feeling tethered yet pulled in two directions. "Zoe," he said, reaching for her hand. "I let him go, Clara." His father's voice cut through the tension. "He needs to learn." The weight of those words hung in the air like a storm cloud. Jake's breath quickened, caught between the desire to break free and the fear of losing everything he knew. "Jake," Zoe whispered, her eyes softening, "look at me." He met her gaze, seeing the hope there shining like a beacon. She was both a lifeline and a risk. The world around him seemed to blur, sounds fading into a distant hum as he weighed his choices. In that moment, clarity washed over him. "I'm sorry," he murmured, but his feet felt rooted to the ground, wrestling with what he knew he had to do. Could he break free from the chains of expectations and embrace the woman beside him? As he glanced back at his family, waiting for him to crumble, Jake realized he stood at a crossroads. Maybe it's time for a new path, he thought. But he didn't know just how tangled things would become if he took that leap. Heart racing, he inhaled sharply. The choice was looming, the night still holding its breath. Because sometimes the hardest step is the first one. What was he willing to risk for love? Jake's hand trembled as he reached for Zoe, desperation and longing intertwining in the air between them. Her eyes sparkled with determination, waiting for him to make a choice that felt both monumental and terrifying. "Listen," Zoe pressed, her voice barely above a whisper. "You don't have to please everyone. Just think about what you really want." With Clara's arms crossed and his father's tension palpable, fear clawed at Jake's insides. His family was a tempest of expectations, and suddenly Jake felt small, no bigger than a kid hiding behind a door. Zoe stepped closer, her presence a cocoon against the storm. "You're brighter than this shadow they've cast," she assured him, fingers squeezing his reassuringly. "If you leave tonight with them, will you ever forgive yourself?" Maybe, he admitted, uncertainty gnawing at him. But the resolve in her eyes made it hard to turn back. Clara rolled her eyes, impatience written all over her face. "We're not going to stand here dancing around your feelings. You have a life to live, and it's with your family. I'm not trying to abandon you," Jake shouted, surprising himself with the force of his words. "I just want one moment to choose for myself." His father's expression faltered for a beat, but then returned with added intensity. "This isn't just about you. There are responsibilities, Jake. We've sacrificed." Zoe stepped in between them again, electricity sparking in the air. No one has sacrificed anything for Jake, just their own version of what he should be. Jake felt a fire inside him flicker to life. "She's right. I've spent too long being what everyone else expected. Tonight should mean something different." With newfound confidence glimmering in his chest, Jake looked deep into Zoe's eyes, and her supportive smile ignited a sense of liberation he hadn't known he craved. But Clara and their father stood firm, their disbelief hanging over him like a dense fog. "You're making a huge mistake, Jake," Clara cried out, voice rising in alarm. "You're throwing everything away for a girl." The ground felt like it was shifting beneath him. Was he really ready to stand up for himself, to pick love over obligation? The tempest roared louder, full of risk and potential heartbreak. "Tell me again," he breathed almost to himself. "What do I really want?" Zoe leaned in, her presence saturating his senses. "You want to be free. You want to breathe." And just like that, the world grew quiet. He could feel the weight of his family's expectations pressing against him like a heavy cloak. But this moment with Zoe felt lighter than air. It was something he wanted to embrace, to fight for, regardless of what lay ahead. Before he could overthink it, Jake took a step back, space opening between him and his family. "I'm not going with you." The words hung in the still air, vibrating with possibility and dread. Clara's mouth dropped open in disbelief while his father clenched his jaw, eyes narrowing. Clara's voice drifted like a leaf caught in the wind. "You don't know what you're saying." "No," he said firmly, "I do. This is my life. Not a script you wrote for me." Jake felt a surge of exhilaration at his declaration, even as the consequences loomed ahead. But with Zoe standing steadfast beside him, he believed he could face anything, even the inevitable fallout. Together, Zoe murmured, squeezing his hand. But just as clarity dawned, the distant sound of an approaching car echoed through the park, heavy and ominous. Would his family be combative? Confrontational? His heartbeat quickened as the headlights illuminated the trees, a glaring reminder of the division between him and everything he had known. What awaited them on the other side of this choice? What storms would they have to weather together? As Jake stood at this crossroads, he realized it was only just the beginning of a tumultuous journey, one that would test their love, resolve, and truth. Bracing himself for what lay ahead, he took a deep breath. Could he truly chart a new path? Or would the shadows of his past close in around him? The night wasn't finished yet, and neither was he. The car rolled to a stop, its headlights slicing through the darkness like a knife. Jake's heart raced as he turned to Zoe, her hand still warm in his. They shared a look, a mixture of fear and determination. Was this the moment everything changed? His family stepped out, tension radiating from them. Clara's eyes darted frantically between Jake and Zoe, as if weighing their connection against the gravity of expectations. His father's face was a study in conflict. Anger, betrayal, and confusion flickered across his features as he took in the scene. What in the world is going on here? His father demanded, voice booming, cutting through the night's silence. I'm not going with you. Not tonight, Jake said, the conviction seeping into his words. Is this a joke? You'd reject your own family for a girl? Clara's tone was incredulous, tinged with hurt. In that moment, Jake felt a sting of guilt, but it was quickly overshadowed by the rush of adrenaline. This was his moment. Torn between the family he loved and the future he wanted, he realized he had never felt more alive. Zoe squeezed his hand tighter. You have to listen to him, she urged, glancing briefly at Clara and their father. Yes, not just running away. Yes, choosing to stand up for himself. Stand up for himself? His father scoffed. This is what standing up looks like. Wandering through life with no direction, no future? Jake swallowed hard, letting the wave of doubt crash over him before pushing it back with a burning insistence. You don't get it. You've always wanted me to fit into your mold, but that mold wasn't made for me. It was never who I was. You think this is about molds? His father challenged, taking a step closer. This is about responsibility. We built a life, Jake. You can't just throw it away. I'm not throwing it away, Jake replied, his voice rising. I'm finally choosing for myself. I've spent my whole life doing what I'm told, what I'm supposed to be. It's time I decide who I really am. A silence fell, heavy and palpable, weaving an invisible barrier between Jake and his family. The storm of emotions surged, and he could see the realization slowly dawn on Clara's face. She opened her mouth, perhaps to apologize, but nothing came out. Jake turned to Zoe, her presence felt like an anchor amid the chaos. I want to explore. I want to see things my way with you. The intensity of his feelings blossomed like a flame, radiating warmth through his uncertainty. I'm not perfect, but I want to try. I want to grow. Just as those words left his mouth, something shifted in the air. Clara's expression softened, if only for a heartbeat. You really mean it, don't you? Yes, Jake affirmed, standing straighter, emboldened by Zoe's unwavering support. Each heartbeat pulsed with a newfound fervor, bursting forth as if the truth of his desire had finally found its voice. I've always been afraid that leaving would break my family apart, he admitted, finding the honesty oddly freeing. But it's not just about me anymore. It's about being true to myself, and if you can't see that, I'm not sure what to say. For a split second it felt like the world stood still, time dangling precariously in the balance as the headlights dimmed and shadows swelled. Clara's face shifted, a mix of understanding and lingering frustration tugging her features. Maybe there's still hope for you, for all of us, Jake. But before Jake could respond, another voice broke through the moment, sharp and challenging. And what if you fail? What if you end up a nobody? It was his father, cutting through the budding tender moment, every word a dagger. Jake's pulse quickened, he could feel the stakes rising higher. Walking this new path would be fraught with obstacles yet unknown. Would he truly be brave enough to embrace what was uncertain? Sometimes being a nobody is better than being a somebody in the wrong story, Jake replied, breath hitching slightly. As the shadows deepened around them, he felt Zoe's hand squeeze his again. No matter what comes next, you won't be alone. Their eyes locked, and for that fleeting moment, hope unfurled like a blossoming flower, promising a vibrancy that shone against the storm. The future lay ahead, undulating like mist. What awaited them now, beyond this turbulent night? Would the family they loved accept the love they had chosen? The weight of truth loomed large, waiting to be revealed. Jake took a breath, steadied by the unknown. Together they carve a path out of the night. Would it be enough to light their way? The air was thick with tension as Jake stood his ground, his heart hammering in his chest. He could feel the uncertainty swirling around him, each breath heavy with the possibility of losing everything he had known. Yet it also felt liberating, like shedding an old skin. His father, arms crossed tightly against his chest, stared at him with fierce disappointment. You think this is bravery? Just throwing away everything we've built for a whim? It's not a whim, Jake countered, the words bursting out of him. Zoe is not just some fantasy. She matters to me. I want to figure out who I am, and that's more important than any expectation. Choosing the road less traveled doesn't mean you won't stumble, Clara interjected, her voice shaky but determined. What if this choice leads to regret? What if you end up isolated? In that moment, he realized his sister's words were laced with her own fears. There was comfort in conformity, a safety blanket that felt good but suffocating. Regret is part of life. I can't live in fear of it anymore, Jake said, voice softening but still firm. Zoe stepped forward, embodying his courage and clarity. It's about love. Not just love for each other but love for who you want to be. You don't know until you try. Jake's gaze darted between his family, searching for understanding in their expressions. Clara blinked rapidly, as if processing his words, while the storm of emotions danced across his father's face. Then suddenly, the world exploded into a cacophony of drivers' honks and city chatter behind him. It pulled Jake from the confrontation, grounding him momentarily. I can't stay if it means living someone else's life. This isn't just about leaving. It's about starting fresh. His father stepped forward again, eyes narrowing, voice dipping low. And what if you fail? Would you still think all this effort to escape was worth it? Jake hesitated. This was the raw, ugly side of choosing for himself, the possibility of failure lurking just outside the edges of his dreams. Maybe I'll fall flat on my face. But at least I'll know I tried. Isn't that better than never knowing who I could have been? The silence that followed felt dense, wrapped in quiet desolation. In Clara's eyes he saw a flicker of understanding combined with resistance. Their father remained stoic, a stone wall against the flood of emotions. But Zoe tightened her grip on his hand, giving him the strength to push forward. Life isn't about guarantees, Jake pressed on, it's about experiences and growing from them. If you can't accept who I want to be, then I have to accept that. I'm done living for anyone else. The words hung in the air, raw and exposed like a freshly cut wound. Clara shifted, her eyes glistening with tightly held emotions. You really believe you can just throw everything away for this adventure? I believe in love. In life. In making my own story even if it's messy. I'm sorry if it makes you unhappy, but I have to follow what feels right for me. Zoe stepped lightly beside him, her warmth radiating assurance. They were a unit now versus a confrontation. Something in Clara seemed to crack just a bit as she glanced toward their father. Maybe we should give him a chance. Give him a chance? His father's brow furrowed in disbelief. And what about the business? The plans we've laid out for him? I can't do it. Jake shouted, heart pounding like a drum, ignited by his own truth. I can't wear the mask anymore. It's suffocating. I need to discover who I can be when I'm not your son or Clara's brother. At that moment, silence fell heavily, buzzing around them with no easy answers, just a swirl of uncertainty. Would his family step back and trust that he would navigate the dark waters ahead? Clara looked to their father, searching for a flicker of support. Jake held his breath, ready for the backlash or an olive branch, desperate for release from the pressure that had built up. Finally, the tension shifted and Clara spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. But what if there's a way to move forward together? Zoe took a step closer, her presence illuminating the shadows between them. Jake could feel the weight of that question hanging over everyone. Would they find a way to bridge the chasm? As he searched their faces, the reality began to set in. This wasn't just about him. It was about them all learning how to love without conditions, to grow from pain instead of letting it drown them. And yet, deep down, Jake knew the path ahead would be rocky. Was he truly ready for whatever would come next? The uncertainty lingered like thick fog, wrapping around them, leaving only one question clear. How could he find himself and keep his family intact? A future bright yet daunting loomed on the horizon. Jake stood on the precipice of his decision, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. As Clara's fragile questions hung in the air, he could sense a shift within his family. His father remained resolute, yet the silence spoke volumes. It felt as if they were all teetering on a tightrope, and he was terrified they might all fall together. Maybe we should, Clara said again, more firmly this time, try to understand what he's feeling. Her eyes locked onto their father's, searching for any sign of approval. Their father's expression softened slightly, but the hard lines didn't vanish completely. You've always been the good son, Jake. You've never questioned what was planned for you. Why now? Why her? It's not just about her, Dad, Jake replied, unable to keep the frustration from bubbling over. It's about understanding who I am, who I want to be. I can't keep living out your dreams. Zoe squeezed his hand tighter, her presence a steady anchor. You have to let him breathe, sir. Jake is right. Life is too short to live in a cage. He needs to find his wings. His father's eyes darted between the two of them, weighing their words, battling with his own emotions. Jake could see the internal struggle unfolding. A small part of him hoped deep down that their father could reconcile his desire for Jake's happiness with his own vision of success. Clara took a step forward. Jake's right. We all have dreams, and sometimes we have to be brave enough to chase them. It doesn't mean we love you any less. Her voice crackled with emotion, but there was a fire beneath it. This was not just a family disagreement. It was a plea for unity as tensions simmered. The familiar city sounds faded into the background. Jake's heart raced, unsure of what might come next. For the first time in a long time he felt the power of possibility. Could they really be on the verge of something transformative? Maybe we need to redefine what family means, Clara suggested, glancing at their father again. What if we all took a step back and considered that this isn't just about the business or the life we envisioned? Zoe's expression softened as she turned to Jake, her eyes bright with hope. He could see her fear transforming into faith that they could all figure this out together. But where does that leave any of us? Their father challenged, a hint of desperation creeping in. I don't want to lose you, Jake. I'm not going anywhere, Jake said, focusing on the trembling emotions beneath his father's tough exterior. I just want to make choices that resonate with me. You won't lose me if I'm true to myself. His father's expression shifted again, the weight of years of expectations tumbling down around them like sandcastles against the tide. Could it be possible that he might actually come around? Could they all rebuild on a new foundation? The silence grew primal, a moment heavy with the fear and tension of not only family but of personal truths that were yet to be spoken. Then, Clara broke through the silence, her voice strong. What if we made a deal? You follow your heart, Jake, and we will support you. In return, you keep us in the loop. Don't shut us out completely. Jake could hardly believe what he was hearing. His sister was offering the bridge he didn't know he needed. His father remained tense, but his gaze softened. Together we can navigate this, Zoe added, a smile creeping onto her face. New beginnings can be messy, but they're also so beautiful. We can learn together. Jake felt a weight lift, a crack in the wall that had always felt impenetrable. Okay, let us try it. All of us. I want you to be part of my story, not just spectators. Just as he finished speaking, a distant siren wailed through the city, cutting through their tension like a knife. But in that moment Jake felt something shift inside himself. Perhaps this was the start of something new, not just for him, but a fresh chapter for his family. Yet, as he glanced at their father, uncertainty flickered again. Would their father truly embrace this change, or would he ultimately retreat back into the role of an authority figure? As they all stood there, a newfound hope contrasted starkly against latent fears. It was a starting point, a fragile one, but he felt the promise of love laden in the air. But could they truly forge a path forward? Only one question remained as they all faced each other, brave hearts laid bare. Would they risk it all for the chance of a shared journey? The sound of the siren faded, leaving an echo of uncertainty still hanging in the air. Jake felt the warmth of Zoe's hand gripping his, a lifeline as he navigated this uncharted territory with his family. Clara's gaze lingered on their father, a mix of hope and apprehension wrinkling her brow. Jake's heart raced. This was not just a conversation. It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, waiting to take a leap into the unknown. Let's talk about what this means, their father finally said, his voice steady yet laced with an undertone of struggle. Jake could sense the weight of his words, the pressure they all felt to find common ground. If we're changing the game, we need to set some ground rules and also some expectations. Jake nodded slowly, understanding that this was their father's way of trying to maintain control, while also acknowledging the shift. That makes sense, Dad. Just don't expect me to fit into a mold anymore. I need space to discover who I really am. Clara chimed in, we need to communicate, all of us. No more secrets or assumptions. If we want this to work, we have to be honest with each other. Their father sighed, his brow creasing. Fine. Honesty. But understand this. I've built my life around certain expectations. It's not easy to just let go. The admission hung in the air, heavy with familiarity. Jake could almost feel the memories wrapped around those words. All the hopes and dreams their father had clung to. It was a beacon of both fear and courage. I get that it's hard, Jake said gently. But it's hard for me too. I never asked to be your project. I just want to be loved for who I am, not who you want me to be. The honesty struck deep. The tension began to ebb, replaced by a flow of raw emotions. Their father's shoulders slumped slightly, and Jake caught a glimpse of vulnerability. For the first time, they were talking about feelings that ran deeper than business deals and success stories. Zoe took a deep breath and added, I promise you we all want what's best for each other. Let us make this a chance for us to really see each other. Jake felt the warmth of agreement spark among them. It was a glimmer of light breaking through the clouds that had hovered over their family for so long. They were moving in the right direction. But what if one of us isn't happy with the direction? Their father asked quietly, a storm of insecurities brewing in his eyes. Then we discuss it, Jake responded, the conviction in his voice surprising even him. No matter how much it hurts. We can't hide anymore. Clara's eyes sparkled. This is good, Dad. This is what we need. To be a family. Real families don't just stand in the same room. They share their lives. For a moment, silence enveloped them again. And then in a soft voice their father spoke, all right. I'll follow your lead, Jake. You all deserve that chance. Jake felt both exhilarated and terrified. It was a fragile agreement, but it was a start. They were opening doors that had long been shut tight. What if it led to a path they never expected? As if reading his thoughts, Clara placed a hand on his shoulder. We're doing this together, Jake. No matter where it leads. Just then the front door creaked open, and the cool breeze wafted in, carrying whispers of the outside world, an invitation for change. Jake could hear the faint hum of life outside, a testament that anything was possible. He glanced around at the faces of his family, each of them holding a piece of this uncertain puzzle. Questions loomed, but also a sense of unity. Still deep down, a nagging thought remained. Would they truly embrace the changes ahead? Or would fear pull them back to their old ways when faced with the tough realities of life? With hope mingling with apprehension, Jake took a deep breath. The journey had just begun, and he couldn't shake the feeling that it would lead them somewhere profoundly transformative. But as the door creaked again, Jake couldn't help but wonder what would happen when the past came knocking once more. Jake stood in the warm light of the park, the weight of everything thrumming in his chest. The air was heavy with the scent of blooming flowers and freshly cut grass, filling him with both hope and nervous anticipation. They had reached a pivotal moment, their hearts bared, and their vulnerabilities laid out before one another. His family was no longer just a presence. They were now a tapestry of love and expectations interwoven with the desire for acceptance. Clara, once inflated with indignation, now wore an expression of contemplation that allowed a bridge to form between them. And their father, always the pillar of strength, stood visibly shaken, the cracks in his stern demeanor revealing an understanding that had been long in coming. We're all afraid, Jake said, his voice rising with a certainty he didn't know he possessed. But that fear shouldn't have the power to dictate our lives. I've always carried the burden of your expectations, feeling like a shadow of myself. I want to be whole just as much for you as for me. Silence fell heavily around them, transforming the discomfort into a palpable energy. Zoe squeezed Jake's hand, a grounding presence that strengthened his resolve. We have to be brave enough to confront our emotions, to allow ourselves to be who we truly are. Together. Together, Clara echoed, her voice softer now, almost tentative. We have to start somewhere, and be willing to navigate through the messy parts of family. Their father hesitated, wrestling with his own fears, before finally looking into Jake's eyes. I might not understand it all, he said, his voice breaking slightly, but I'm willing to try. I can't promise that it won't be difficult, But I want us to find a way to love each other without conditions. It was a significant admission, one that Jake had longed to hear. Hope blossomed within him, pushing back against the darker shadows of doubt. That's all I want too, Jake replied. The corners of his mouth curled into a tentative smile. Then, Clara chimed in. Let us have open conversations moving forward. We can't lock our feelings away anymore. No secrets, no expectations, it will force us to be honest. She turned slightly, her gaze soft as it met their father's. Like you said, it might be hard, but we're family. We owe it to ourselves to be real. No matter where we end up. As the tension dispersed, laughter from children at the playground drifted in on the breeze, a reminder of life continuing around them. Jake could feel the warmth of connection enveloping him, nurturing the fragile threads of understanding that had begun to stitch them all back together. Jake glanced at Zoe and, for a brief moment, felt the world shift into place. Their hands intertwined, sustaining the shared promise that they would stay true to themselves, no matter what storm lay ahead. We won't just survive. We'll thrive, he added, his heart lightening with conviction. And just like that, a spark ignited between them, a shared understanding that life might be chaotic, but love would always be the common thread. Let us venture into this unknown together, he concluded, looking at each family member and letting the warmth of acceptance wash over him. His father stepped closer, a guarded smile softening the hard lines etched on his face. Then let's take that step together. Together. Jake let the word roll through him, rich and fulfilling. As they turned toward the playground, the laughter ringing out like music, they all took slower steps, savoring the sense of connection, while melding their separate lives into one more vibrant and adventurous tapestry. In that moment, Jake realized he had embraced his truth and the power of vulnerability. This journey wouldn't be easy and challenges would undoubtedly arise. But now they stood together, every piece of their lives woven into a new beginning. Love had become their greatest guide, so they ventured forth, hearts aligned, ready to face whatever lay ahead, unified as a family that chose love over expectations. And as they walked into the sunset, a radiant hope shimmered around them, like the start of a brand new chapter waiting to unfold. If you felt the transformation, if you believe in the power of love and family, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Just hit that bell to catch all our exclusive stories in the future. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Don't hold back, comment below your thoughts and feelings about this amazing ending. And the most important part? Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second. True fans know how vital your support is for our community.